All right, so now we have started recording. There's just a few of us today, but that's okay. This is always, it's always good. And so welcome, Brianna, to this session. Just quickly introduce myself. I'm Carrie Starkin, the State 4-H Director, and so I've been doing these webinars every month. Hopefully Jill has shared the recordings with you. If not, let me know and I can get you a copy, or I can send you to the YouTube site that has all of the recordings. So we are going to start today by talking about, today's topics are targeting life skills model, and then experiential learning, teaching and learning. And so these are two theories of youth development, of positive youth development, that we use very frequently. As you move along in 4-H, you're going to hear experiential learning and life skills a lot. And so where experiential learning is not a 4-H concept, targeting life skills, that is actually an extension in 4-H program that was developed, and that's the first one we're going to talk about. It was actually developed by Pat Hendricks out of Iowa State, and I'm going to share their website with you, but we're just going to talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right. So now I can't see. Let me... Okay, nope, that doesn't do it. Sorry, it just took away my Zoom. Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm trying to get my chat box back up. Okay, there we go. Chat box. So I know who is on as well. Let's see. Oh, participants. Okay. Welcome, Stormy. Okay, so sorry, it took away one and moved it to another. I'm actually going to stop sharing this because it looks funky and go back. Sorry, I'm having issues today with Zoom. So, okay, well, I'm not sure why it's doing that. But so targeting life skills model, and I will move so it doesn't have these black lines in the middle, but just so you guys know what is, and I have the chat box up, so if you guys have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. So what this is, it's a model. Like I said, it was developed at Iowa State by Pat Hendricks in probably, I'm going to say, the late 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. And we are, as youth development professionals, we're always concerned with helping our youth to become confident in their life skills that are going to help them transition into adulthood. And so by helping our young people meet some of their basic needs and develop the competencies that are important to their immediate and future success is our role as youth development professionals. So as we look at that, 4-H really focuses in on developing skills that are healthy and productive both for our youth and for the communities. So what we have done, this is our framework that we use typically when we talk about targeting life skills. It's really based on the 4-H pledge. You can see the head, heart, hands, and health. That it helps us to organize it in a delivery that supports the growth and development of our youth, and it's also language that we understand within 4-H. So it addresses 5 competency areas, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But so what is youth development? When we talk about a youth development professional, youth development is the process of mental, physical, social, and emotional growth during which young people prepare to become productive and to live a productive and satisfying life within the customs and regulations of their society. That's like the official definition of what youth development is. So what we need to remember is positive or youth development experiences don't happen high quality youth development experiences don't just happen. You really have to carefully plan them out. And so one of the ways to do that is just to think about what life skills are you trying to teach to our young people as we're moving along. So essentially we're trying to encourage life skill development while we're delivering that subject matter content, as well as achieve specific results. So one of the things is when we look at targeting life skills, this is one of those pieces that we can measure impact. I know many of you have received a survey in the last couple of weeks asking about some different pieces that include or that are regarding evaluation and measuring impact, but we are being required more and more to not only tell what our numbers are. So we had 4,536 4-H club members, but we're also being asked, what is it, so they were involved in your program. Now we need to tell them why being involved in our program, it makes them a better person. And one way that we can do that is through life. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for joining. Is through life skills, and we can measure some of those life skills that we're trying to teach. Even if it's a one program or like a one-shot program, we can at least measure if they gained any knowledge within that area and within that life skill. So what are the life skills? So a skill is a learned ability to do something well, and a life skill are the abilities that individuals can learn to help them become successful in living a productive and satisfying life. So how does the targeting life skills model fit? Well, it identifies categories of life skills, and it divides them based on the 4 H's from the 4-H Clover and from our pledge. And you can see, so here is the model, and you can see that those fall under the head, heart, hands, and health. And so with that, under the head, you have thinking and managing are two big categories. Under that, there are smaller categories on learning about life skills. So learning to learn, decision making, this is under the thinking, problem solving, critical thinking, and service learning. And so those are all life skills that when you're trying to teach a young person about about thinking, then that's something that they're learning about. And you're probably not going to teach all of these life skills at one time. You may want to try to think about, as you're planning a program, maybe one or two. Managing, we know in 4-H we teach young people a lot about goal setting. When they begin a project, we always like them to sit down and think about, what are my goals for this project? And then have them write those down. And then how do they plan to complete that project and organize? Wise use of resources, keeping records, and then resiliency. The heart, those are things about relating to people and caring for people. So, things like communications and cooperation, those social skills, conflict resolution, accepting differences. And then the caring, things, their concern for others, empathy, sharing, nurturing relationships, which is one of the reasons why we're always so, we really feel like it's an important piece with the service to community, and that they're teaching that they are in their communities giving back. Now, that also falls under the hands, under the giving, but it also, under the caring, that concern for others and the empathy. And then we have our hands, which is our giving and working. So, they're learning service learning or community service, volunteering, leadership, responsible, contributions to a group. We like to have them work in groups and really come up with some group solutions. That's one of the reasons why, when you think about club officers, and we like, it's always really important that we have officers within our club, and that they are leading the group, and they work with the entire 4-H club to become, or to come up with group consensus on what they might want to do for community service. That's one of the reasons why we really try to stress to have the club come up with those ideas rather than the leader come up with all of those ideas themselves. It, number one, gives them leadership. It also gives them that contribution to a group. And young people, we know, will be more apt to be invested in the project if they've come up with the idea. And then you can see the marketing or the working, so those marketable skills, teamwork, self-motivation. These are skills that when you go into a classroom, I know that I've gone into many, many classrooms over my career, and talking to teachers, especially ones that know about 4-H, they will tell you, they can point out all of the 4-H kids in that classroom, because those are the ones who have the self-motivation. They're getting their homework in on time. They're doing all of the things. They listen. They're respectful. Partly because that's what's expected of them in our program. And then you have your health, which is living and being. So like they're making healthy lifestyle choices. The TUF study, or the study of positive youth development, I can't remember as it's more commonly known, the TUF study. And for many of you, you may not be familiar with this, and I'm going to make a note to send a copy of that. It's going to look really daunting to many of you, but what that was a longitudinal study done. It just wrapped up about a year ago by Tufts University on what it was that made 4-H different than other youth serving organizations. So what is it about our 4-H program? And one of the things that they found was that 4-H members are, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 times more likely to make healthy lifestyle choices than non-4-H members. And so those are things like drinking, drugs, premarital sex, and risky behaviors. And so, we know that is something that they are learning through our program. We also, stress management is another one. We all know what it's like right before fair, and if that doesn't teach moms, dads, 4-H leaders, and kids about stress management, I'm not sure what will. Disease prevention, and then personal safety. And you can see and then the being are things like self-esteem, responsibility, character, managing their feelings, and discipline. So really, what's important to know about this 4-H framework, it really is knowing how it's structured. One of the things that I've seen done with this, and I was trying to figure out, I was online the other day looking, and I've got to figure out a way that I can do this, because when I do this training, when I've done it face-to-face, and this is something you can do with your volunteers, I think this, talking about the targeting life skills model is a great leader training for the volunteers. And so one of the things I've seen done is you take this wheel and you blow it up onto a big poster board, and then you cut out each of the life skills, the individual life skills, so the teamwork, self-motivation, managing feelings, etc. And your volunteers then have to figure out where they go on the wheel. So they're given leadership. So are they going to put that under managing, and under the head and the managing, or are they going to put it under the hands and the giving? So you want them to figure that out. And you might give everybody, depending on how many people are there, you might have a few. The other thing you could do is leave, on the wheel, you could leave one for each of the areas, so they kind of have an understanding of what might fall under that category. But that is always a really good activity to get people thinking about what are some life skills that we can be teaching. And it really helps us as staff, for our volunteers, to understand what this model looks like and what it says, for the fact that we like to, that way they can, they're delivering a program. Like I said in the beginning, they're, a positive and successful youth development program does not happen without some planning. So the purpose of it is to provide a way to simplify the coordination of that life skill development with ages and stages tasks, so that those programs can be developmentally appropriate, and that they're more effective in achieving the outcomes. So, we all know that probably you're not going to be teaching necessarily, let's see, maybe critical thinking to a 6-year-old. It's a good concept to start introducing at that age, but they're not going to quite catch on to it at that point. But it's a good, that's something as they get older, you can start looking at. And so the value of it is really provides a format for incorporating the major points of youth development programming. It can help assist our youth to reach their full potential through that positive approach to life skill development. I think it's always, always taking that positive approach is good. Delivering information and skill practice at the appropriate developmental level for the targeted audience, and then writing specific learning objectives for life skill. I hit my button. For life skill development that are measurable. And that's where I know a lot of these, when we've talked about the 4-H common measures, and I think Sharon, maybe Marissa, I don't even know if Marissa was on board yet when we talked about, when we introduced the common measures. What that is it's a set of questions and indicators that we can use in our programming when we want to measure different things. So one of the examples that, so an example of a common measure. So one of the universal questions, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, might be about decision making. And so they'll have questions. So if you're actually teaching a session and you're going to do, it may not be, may not talk about decision making, but there's an activity in there where they have to learn about, or they have to display the decision making, and they really have to figure out how to make a decision. Then you might want to ask a question about that. And so there are actual questions that are already designed. You're going to be hearing more about that probably. I think we're looking at spring or fall. There's a committee, a small committee working on evaluation and assessment of 4-H programs. We're trying to do a statewide assessment, and then we're also trying to create some kind of tools for the counties to be able to use at your own county level, maybe for just specific programs. But if you want to measure life skills in anything that you're doing, please get a hold of me, and I can talk you through that on how you want to do that. And it's also helps you to complete an instructional plan that is created on experiences based on experiential learning that achieve that life skill development. And then we also identify observable or measurable incomes, indicators of change. It makes it a lot easier to be able to evaluate, say, cooperation. If you are thinking about, so this is a skill that I want young people to learn about in my program, or in a specific program that you're doing, I want them to learn about cooperation. Well, if you think about that ahead of time, while you're planning out the program, it really does make a difference in what kind of activities that you plan, etc. Any questions? I know that that's pretty quick through the framework, but I wanted to introduce you to that framework. And then also, I'm going to be sharing with you Let me see if I can find it really quick. I found a really good handout. Okay, maybe it doesn't want to show up. There we go. Okay. So I found I'm going to share my screen again. I found a really good handout from Florida that I'm going to be sending to you as well. And I think this really does kind of explain the reason why we use the targeting life skills. The other thing that I will share with you is on the Iowa website, and in the PowerPoint I do have the link to the Iowa website. They have, and I did not know that they had this. It must be something new. They actually have a teaching manual when you're talking about the targeting life skills, as well as let me look. Sorry, it was behind me because I ordered them the other day. It was okay, if I can find it now. Let's see. So developing youth curriculum using the targeting life skills. So it's how do you incorporate the targeting life skills model in your, when developing programs, and then also a training packet. So just so you know, I do have those on order. I'm hoping that they get here pretty soon. And if they are good, I will share them with everybody. You know, I'm assuming that they're pretty good, but I can't tell you 100% right now because I've not seen them. So as soon as they get here, I will, you know, if they are, I will share them. They're really fairly inexpensive. Actually, if you are part of Extension, then all you do is pay for the shipping to get them to you. I believe it was, yeah, I paid $13 and then I had to pay a handling fee. So I paid $15.99 to get those 2 books, and they typically would have been about $35. So pretty reasonable, like I said, if they are, which, you know, I'm thinking that they might be. And again, this is I think it's always important, especially new leaders, understand what this whole targeting life skills model is all about. So any questions? Thoughts? Comments? All right. So we're going to get out of here pretty good time today. The other one that I want to talk about, sorry, I'm pulling it up. It somehow stopped my, okay. So this one might take a little bit longer, but what I want to talk about is experiential teaching and learning. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves in 4-H on, number one, is our research-based project materials, or our research-based programming that we offer. The other thing that we really pride ourselves on in 4-H is the experiential learning that we allow our young people to participate in. Whether we call it inquiry-based learning, experiential learning, which are slightly different but fairly similar, you know, learning by doing, all of those pieces are very similar. Basically, what it comes down to is the young people are doing the activity, they are reflecting on the activity, and then they apply that activity. So I'm going to go into that a little bit. So John Dewey is actually the inventor, or the person that they credit experiential learning to. And what he said is experiential learning takes place when a person is involved in an activity, can look back at it and evaluate it, determine what was useful and important to remember, and uses this information to perform other activities. Now, I will tell you in Extension and in 4-H, and I am completely guilty of this 100%. We tend to hit the do all the time, but we don't do the reflect very often. And I think that that's what we have to be really cognizant of, is the reflect and then the apply. And you'll understand that if you're not familiar with this model in just a second. But essentially, the skills that we want them involved in are things like life skills, project and content skills, the science processing skills, applied skills, workforce and leadership skills, and service learning skills. So the 4-H program promotes the experiential model of learning as a primary format for educating youth. There are several key steps taken, take the youth from beyond simply learning or simply doing the activity or participating in the experience to actually learning. And that's what, that's really what our job is to get them beyond just doing the activity. That's why it is, when somebody will, tell me, oh, we're doing this activity, okay, so, what, are you just doing the activity? Or, that's why I like people to think about moving forward with that. So this is what it looks like. You may have heard it be called do, reflect, apply, but there are actually 5 steps in the true experiential learning model. 1, they experience it, they experience the activity, perform it or do it. They share their results, their reactions, their observations, and they share those publicly. So many times when you're doing an activity or when, if you've ever been in a workshop where you have somebody, you get a question and then you have to turn to your partner and share your answer, there's a reason for that. That is called the sharing piece of that puzzle. And then you process it. So by discussing or looking at the experience, you analyze it and you reflect on it. Then you generalize it. So you connect that experience to real world examples, and then they think about how are they going to apply what they learned to a similar situation. So we're going to break this down now. So the experience. So this is really, the attention is on the learner. So they are doing the activity. They're planning for discovery. So these are things that you need to remind yourself as a teacher or an adult, and then also remind your volunteers. Your job there is to sit on your hands. You're to observe. You need to facilitate to the bigger picture. As far as, you don't want to jump in and do the activity for the kids. You want to make sure that they are, that you're allowing them to do that activity. Or if you're doing this with adults, the same thing. It's also key objectives that are discovery oriented. So as you are, and one of our lessons that we're going to talk about, one of our orientation sessions is basically how to create a lesson plan when you're doing a program. And so but in this section, you're going to say things like to explore, to examine, to construct, to arrange. So the youth that participate in this program will explore 5 different types of fruits and vegetables, or fruits that are available in the grocery store. That's one. So they are actually out in the grocery store finding 5 different fruits that they could eat. They can examine, etc. So then sharing and processing. So the sharing is you are sharing the results. So the key concept, or, as you're moving forward with this, your concept is, so what? So what happened? Because you went into the grocery store and found 5 fruits that are available, what happened? And then the way you process it, and so that's the kind of that sharing part. Then when you're processing it, when you're talking to them, okay, so what happened? And then what's important about finding those 5 fruits? That's where the young person may say, I didn't know that you could get kumquats at our local grocery store. I love kumquats, haven't had them, forever, blah, blah, blah. And then, so the leader's role there is, number 1, and this is where we fall almost every time, allowing adequate processing time to include the sharing. So many times we have 30 minutes to do an activity. We do 30 minutes of activity and we don't leave time for that sharing or the processing. Making sure that you use open-ended questions to stimulate that thinking and feeling part. And then also encourage the pair share or the large group share. So many times we do a pair share where, turn to the person to your right, share your ideas, and then share, and then we're going to share those with the large group. Or you may get into a pair share, so turn to the person on the left, okay, now get in a group of 4, share what you learned, and then so you keep kind of getting bigger and bigger groups. Any questions so far on this? Okay, everybody's quiet, so we must be doing okay, hopefully. And then this is the part that we really, truly, I don't think ever get to, is the generalization and then the apply part. And so really when you're thinking about the generalization part is, the key concept is, so what? So you learned that there were 5 different fruits in the grocery store, and that one of them was a kumquat. So what? And so what the adult's role or the leader's role is to guide youth in making those connections between their personal inner meaning of the activity and the broader world. So one of the things, with that example that I just gave about the kumquats or the fruits, is you can, have them think about what are some recipes that we can use at home that we can make at home to use these different fruits that we found at the grocery store, and have them think about, well, that's not the broader world, that is their broader world. So you have the world, big world, and the little world, as I call, or the big P and the little P's. And so this is the big W and the little W. In a young person's life, at home, their family is their world. And so we, thinking about that. And then you also have the apply. So now what? And your job, or the adult's job, is to facilitate the youth to find ways that they can use what they learned in that situation, so they can figure out what recipes are available, and then go home and do those recipes, and make those recipes. That's a very simple explanation, but just something that happens. But the critical thing here is I think it's really important that we leave time for those other steps, for number 2 through 5, that we leave time for those. And that is tough to do. So again, this is just the with the do it, what happened, what's important, so what. So now we're going to go into some questions with questions. So when we're sharing, these are I'm trying to give you some ideas of some open-ended questions that you can use when you're processing with the young people. I always think, that's probably the hardest thing that I have, that I find with this, is I'm thinking about questions. So some things, and this is always everybody's favorite question. How did you feel when I asked you that question? Or how did you feel when you gave that answer? Whatever it was. How did you feel when you went to the grocery store and found 5 new fruits? Not always the most popular, but what did you do? That's a really simple question that we don't ask very often. What did you go and do? And it's amazing how you might get 5, if there's 5 people that went, you might get 5 different answers about how they went about doing it. What did you notice? That's another really good question. Again, they might notice that there were really not a large variety of fruits, or that there was a huge variety of fruits. And then another one, what was the most difficult, or what was the easiest part of this task? And I think that those are, again, these are just some basic questions when you're trying to find out about when you're just getting them to share about their experience, then these are good questions to ask. So when you're looking at the process, this one isn't coming in one at a time. So when you're trying to find out what's important, so what are some important things that you learned about, whatever the topic is? What problems or issues seem to occur over and over again? and why did it happen? You know, always asking the why. You know, we always say the who, what, when, where, why, and how kind of falls into this sometimes. What if you had done this, or what if you know, saw this, or, you know, you can have them think about that. If you could do this again, what would you do differently? I think that that's a really good one. If you have a young person that's attempted an activity and failed at it, that's always the question that I like to ask them is, if you could do it again, now what would you do differently? And have them think about, you know, what they can do to make that successful. You can also do it when they are successful in their activity. I think that that's very appropriate question too, but I always like that one if something's gone wrong, having them think about that. So here's generalization. If you're generalizing questions, here's some ideas. So what did you learn about yourself through this activity? You know, sometimes if you've got a really complex activity, you know, where they maybe have to hammer something, or they have, you know, who knows what they have to do. That's always a good one where they, you know, I learned patience. This is always a good question if you've got like a market animal, livestock young person, and they have to, you know, halter break their animal, and they have to, you know, feed it, and they have to, most of the time you ask them that question and they're going to say, I learned patience. And I think it's a good thing for them to identify. How do major themes or ideas relate to other things you do in your life? So, sorry, I'm starting to. So so this is where they can start identifying some of the life skills that they're learning. I think that that's really important. If they understand what life skills that they are gaining from this activity, that's going to be huge to them. And and this is where you're planning when we talk about life skills, what did you learn about decision making while you were doing this activity? This is a great place for you to ask them what, you know, what they learned about those different life skills. And then the apply. So again, you know, try to figure the now what. So what will you do next time that you run into a similar situation? How can you use what you learned in a similar situation? And then what would you do differently next time? I think that those are all important questions to ask. One of the things I just was thinking about, just an activity that just kind of popped into my head, sorry, as I was thinking about the fruits one. So you could have a group. This could be if you're doing something in like a healthy foods program. You can have them find a good recipe that requires certain ingredients. Go to the grocery store, have them find those ingredients. And what you might do, what you could do, I mean, and this is something this is an example you can share with volunteers. You could have them go to a grocery store that you know is not going to have a lot. Maybe, you know, especially if you're in a low-income community or a low-income area. This, you know, I could see this like in here in Reno. We do have some neighborhoods that do not have grocery stores that are close. You know, it might be they have to take the bus to the grocery store. They can't just, you know, go half a mile down the road and run to the grocery store and grab what they need. They might only have a 7-Eleven, or they might only have, you know, a Circle K or something like that, a convenience store. And so this, you know, you would take them there and say, okay, now find the ingredients that you need for your recipe. And then they can't find it. So you get to this apply section and you're saying, okay, now what? You know, this could be something, you know, what would you do differently? You know, and have them think about some of those things. It's always good to start thinking about those types of activities, especially if you were going to share this with your volunteers, this event or this activity. The other thing that there's really good activities to do with this particular lesson. Had we been face-to-face, and of course I should have grabbed them this morning just so I could show you. You take a balloon, you blow it up, and then you have a skewer, and you tell them they have to they have to put the skewer through the balloon without popping the balloon. And how many of you, have any of you seen that activity? Okay. Oh, none of you have seen that one. Dang it. And I don't have a balloon or a skewer. So basically, I may have to figure out a way that I can show you guys that activity because it's really kind of cool. But basically, you take the balloon, when you blow it up, you've got the end that is that you tie off, and then you have the other end. And if you ever notice at the other end, there's a piece at the very top that's a little thicker than the rest of the balloon that when you blow it up. So you take the skewer, it could be a little bit with a toothpaste tube, but that's another good one to use too. But you take the skewer and you kind of put it right next to where you tied it off, because that's a little thicker, and you take it all the way through to the other end where it's thicker, and you poke it through, and so you've got the balloon. So this is your skewer, and your balloon is this way on the skewer. So it works really, really well, because most people they'll just put it through so this is your skewer, or this is your balloon, and this is where you've tied it off. They'll just stick the skewer this way through, but you tell them, nope, you've got to put it, you got to put it through the whole balloon. There's just a whole, it's amazing, and you'll have 3 or 4 of them pop, and it's a really good one. The other one I've done is I've given them just a bunch of Legos, variety of Legos, and told them they had to build a house in teams with those Legos. And that one has worked really well, because they have to that one's if you have more time. The skewer in the balloon is really fast. The toothpaste is really fast. Those are great activities for just quick, easy sharing of experiential learning. And then you go through and do all of these different activities, or do all of these different questions. So experiential learning, again, takes place when a person is involved in the activity, step number 1, looks back on it, step number 2, shares, evaluates it, step number 3, process, step number 4, determines, and that one is gosh, you would think I'd remember that, wouldn't you? Generalize. And then what is useful or important to remember, and uses, step number 5, to apply this information to perform another activity. So you can see how that all fits in. So experiential learning, the experiential learning model really threads through many skills in one activity or in a short series of activities. And so you can, there's a whole variety. But remember, what's really important to focus on learning and leading experientially when working with 4-H youth, that we are co-learners in a youth-generated, adult-facilitated service for our future. I think that that's always, an important part. We need to let our young people, they generate the activities and they're doing the activities. We're just there to facilitate them. Let them actually do them. All right, any questions? And did I share my screen that entire time? No. Oh goodness, sorry guys. Yeah, it's one of those days. It's a Monday before a holiday. Okay, well, there's a really good PowerPoint. So you just got to look at me doing that. So I'm just gonna show you my PowerPoint. Okay. So this is the PowerPoint, and I will share this PowerPoint with you. Basically it will go into, you actually have these ideas. Yeah, it's Monday. It's totally Monday, I can tell, after a long weekend. So again, I just want you to know that I'm not leaving you hanging. It really is there. And I will see, here's those questions that you have. those questions. You'll actually have those questions in front of you. But here I want you to remember, this is where I want to, so, focusing on that learning and leading experientially when working with 4-H youth, and then that we're co-leaders in a youth-generated, adult-facilitated service for our future. Okay. All right. So I will share that PowerPoint with you, so you've got that. And is there any questions? I think a really good way, the way I've always taught this is I start with the balloon and the skewer model, have people, like if you want to do this in a leaders meeting, like a leader training, you start with that activity. You actually go through the entire experiential learning model. You go through all 5 steps with them, and then you go back and talk to them about the model and use the PowerPoint. Okay, any questions, thoughts? Or you can do whatever kind of experiential learning activity that you wanted to do. The skewer and the balloon is cheap. That's one of the reasons why I do it. All right, any questions about experiential learning? All right. You guys it is definitely Monday. So I will get this out to you, and I will get the PowerPoints out to you so you actually see them. And have a great holiday. I'm in this week. I'll be out Thursday and Friday of this week. And then I'll be around the entire week after Christmas. I just probably will be working from home rather than working from the office. So, and thank you, Sharon. Hopefully the information. Our next session, let me look that up really quick just so everybody knows. The next session is scheduled for January 10th. Same time, and that one we're going to talk about working with underserved audiences, and then also finding personal and professional satisfaction in the 4-H profession. I think as you start in your career, I think it's really important to have a good understanding of that, because it can be a little overwhelming at times. And so that one, like I said, that's our next session, and I'll send a reminder out to everybody as well. But January 10th, same time. And thank you, everybody. And you're done early, so hopefully I'm sure everybody has lots to do. Have a great day.